What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Donny Kashh podcast. I have my friend, amazing guy, datax, on the podcast. How you doing, brother?
Wow, go on, my brother.
You're good. You're good. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Appreciate you.
Pleasure, man. You're a genius. I can finally talk with somebody that got some brains.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, who is datax, and what does he do behind the scenes?
So datax is an artist designer who approaches everything through the prism of intellectualism.
Okay.
So we have to think about things before we do them. And that's really my approach as an artist, as a designer, as a writer, and as a thinker. And I let all my different crafts bleed into each other. I take some intelligence, a little bit of wisdom, put it to something else. A whole lot of transferable skill set things going on.
I love it. I love it. So, talk to me. Where did the name datax actually come from?
So, growing up, I was pretty obsessed with TNG, watching Star Trek. So you have this guy named Data, right? But then, I had to combine it with something that's real because Data is out in the stars, very robotic. So Harlem, you look at Malcolm X. So I combined Data from Star Trek with X, Malcolm X. So it's Data X.
That's really deep. I like that.
A little bit of street, a little bit of space,
There's a lot of people, they come up with their names and they always try to come up with this little broski or whatever the name is. I like how you thought about your name and actually put some intellectual behind the name versus just a name out there.
Absolutely. The whole thing is universalism, right? You're given a culture name. You're given a name of a continent, a country, whatever. But that's not always you. Your head could be somewhere else, but you're limited by your name.
Very true, very true.
So I wanted to give people a universal way of speaking to me, the system. So datax is not even, it's like a way of thinking more so these days.
It's also a name that could forever go on. That name could be in 2,000 years from now, datax will people still resonate with that name. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's funny. One of my really dearest friends, Cruds, he's a crazy artist. He made a song called Datax and just sent it to me. And it had some vibes that I could say it was me, but a lot of it was just whatever his own mind could come up with off just the lettering, Data X. Cool. Awesome. Why not? Right.
So when did you know that you wanted to be a part of the culture? And at what age did you realize okay, this is something really cool. I really like this is where it's going?
Well, I'm a 90s kid. I was born in the 80s. I'm a 90s kid. So
Okay.
I'm growing up with the Chicago Bulls. You got Allen Iverson, you got the Sixers, you got Kobe. So, growing up in the hood, 21 Sanford in Hamilton, King and Sanford, it's a well-known hood, not for good reasons. I went to Cathedral High School, and it was basically you had to pick a side. You on the hip-hop side or you're on the rock side. And luckily for me, in grade 10, 11, a new side emerged, electronic. Eiffel 65, .B, .buy.
Oh, man.
ATB, all that, DJ Sammy, Heaven. So electro and Europop and trance and house started to enter our world. And now I could find a place that wasn't rock or rap. It was just cool and urban and tough. And I think I've stuck there since then. I produce house music now.
Yeah. What are one of the first struggles that you faced when you started creating at the beginning?
So I had to transition from being a creative director.
Okay.
And I've been a creative director most of my life. That's how I got started. A little history. I graduated with 2 degrees from McMaster. I have a BA in religious studies and the humanities, and I have a BSc in biology. So my left and right brain work. Now, as soon as I graduated, I got into Princeton for doing my master's. However, I just didn't feel like it was a challenge. So I started managing a 5% rap group in my town, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna start managing rap groups. That's a challenge.
At the very beginning of it, was there a moment that you wanted to quit, and what kept you going forward?
That's a really good question, man. When you do something you love, you go so much into it that you think about quitting all the time. You wonder what it's for. And I had a really good friend, my brother, Nico, in New Jersey. And whenever I would get down, I would talk to him. I'd call him yo, I don't want to do this shit anymore, man. And he'd be yo, don't quit it. Don't quit that shit. Don't quit music. So I kept going because my fellow brethren, they kept showing me, yo, you're smart. It's going to work. Just have faith. And a lot of things happen, man. And I'm happy I stuck with it. Because at the end of the day, the difference between a winner and loser is the guy who won just never gave up. He just kept
100%,
going.
yeah. What are like who are your like influences in music? You said FL65 and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
what are other influences that like really got you to who you are and like created the sound that you're creating today?
For sure. Frankie Knuckles is considered the godfather of house. And that disco filtered style of music, you know, I heard early with Chris Shepard's Pirate Radio when I was in like grade 8. So we're talking about the mid 90s here. And then the way they would mix like urban elements with like a, you know, like a fast beat, that really, you know, changed my life. So Chris Shepard, obviously, and then those Dance Mix 94, 95 CDs that had all those classic like jams, you know?
God,
Like-
bro, like I lived on those CDs every year. My mom would give me one for like Christmas for my birthday.
Much Music Dance 94 and
Oh
95.
my, yeah.
Yeah, and like, I mean, those, I've never really experienced anything like that, right?
That's actually crazy nostalgia. Like a lot of people like, because I know like I was raised by my mom who was white. I never had any really like black influence when I was a child growing up. So like I consider that my white side because I know all these songs. And everybody's like, how do you know all these songs? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't even know. But now that I'm thinking about it, you're bringing up, it was those CDs that my mom would always buy me every single year. And that's what kept me with those like songs that were like the ones like, because everything was CDs back then, right? So if you were big, like you were on those CDs.
Absolutely. Yeah, all around the la 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 la. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like all those joints. You know, Fragment, Toka's Miracle. But basically, I fell in love with house music like in 1999, 2000. You know, and I knew that I wanted to do something with house music, and I kept making mixes. I got into because I'm from Hamilton, and they have a big like punk scene. They have a bunch of bands that did something with, you know, they have Teenage Head, which did a CD with Marky Ramone.
Okay.
So from the Ramones, so like it's a cool like punk culture. But I essentially took the aesthetic of Hamilton, you know, that grunginess, and applied it to modern hip hop and modern electronic music.
I love that. So walk me through your creative process. How do you start a song? How do you look for like references from other things that you're like, oh, this is a good reference. This is a good like I could like maybe like sample this or like, talk to me about that.
That's great question. So I have this thing called nail the concept. So whenever you think of an idea, there's a concept that goes with it. So if you execute an idea without the concept being like bang on how it's supposed to be, it's gonna look janky. It's not gonna look fluid. It's gonna look like it doesn't belong.
Okay.
So, you know, that's one of those things where I think very deeply about the purpose of something before I do it, how it's gonna look. And if I haven't nailed the concept in the first 2 renditions, I give up on the idea right away. It was a bad idea. If it's a good idea, it'll start, you'll know.
What do you find is like the people most misunderstand about your craft?
You know, music,
Yes.
design,
Yes.
fashion.
Yes.
Seems fun, doesn't it? The amount of preparation it takes just to look normal in 2025, it's a lot, you know? And preparation and having your shit together and having scheduled plans, drops, everything got to be on a schedule like you're running a business.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing about the creative industry is that the guy who's good at that stuff will just go forward because he's not messy like a lot of the artists are.
What is like a skill or like something that you've learned about yourself that like makes you stand out from everybody else that's in your actual craft?
I speak very clear English.
I've noticed, yes.
I all the, you know, the words come in sentences in my head. You know, I read a lot. I don't waste time on social media. I create a lot of social media assets. You know, I'm happy and glad that I get to manage a bunch of really important social media accounts. I don't want to say what they are, you know, like you can maybe figure it out. But datax Studio is my main kind of hub, you know. At 16,000 followers, I have an array of people that come to me for all types of stuff, you know. Sometimes music, sometimes it's knowledge,
Yes.
sometimes it's just general intelligence. And it's kind of datax ethos, right? Just keep it intelligent at all times.
Now, I've noticed you worked with some big artists, like name one, Roy Woods. How did that relationship kind of prosper?
I found Roy Woods on SoundCloud when he was a 17-year-old.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So like you guys, like your relationship is deep then.
Yeah, like me and Roy are like friends. I would say for the last couple of years, we just talk about life. We don't even discuss music. Like,
Wow.
well, I mean, we're both fathers now, right? So like, that's a new dynamic to our friendship. But I consider Roy my brother. Like, I promised his mom that he would be successful. I don't know why I did that. That's like crazy to tell, you know, like a new kid you started working with, you know, and I must have been in the spirit that day, something. And I was just like, we're going to get your son
The energy, you just felt it. You just felt it.
I don't know why I said it, and maybe it was some divine type thing, but yeah, so essentially, Roy Woods was signed to Seventh Inning Management, which is myself and Kirby Cancelar. So we signed him to essentially a development/management contract.
Okay.
And we took him downtown, right? And we introduced him to all our people, right? I was managing Shaw Hustle at the time. So I introduced him to Shaw Hustle right away. Like, yo, you guys are going to work together, a young kid. So Roy, as a 17-year-old, we started to get him like doctor's notes because, he'd be on College Street, making music, but he has school in the morning. So, I'd have to write the notes, you know what I'm saying? And at some point we're like, dude, just graduate high school and you're not gonna have to worry about money after. And that's how it went.
That's actually crazy. I would have never thought of that.
Roy has been in the underground properly. He's, he put his time and effort, and he's the guy who used to freestyle for 30 minutes straight. He was the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I remember one time me, Shaw Hustle, and Roy were standing there just talking, and all of a sudden starts to, beat picks up, it's not talk anymore. And Herbalist Jay comes off the street and goes, yo, you guys are freestyling? Joins in right away.
Wow.
And that College Street vibe was just pure art. People from all over, it just came together to really dig in, what is the underground? What should we do? And that's where you got to build artists in the underground, where they're not afraid of making mistakes, experiments, and learning, what happens after an experiment is championed. So yeah, those type of vibes are important. These days, a guy will be like, I want to blow up. I want to get signed all secretly. Oh my God, he's a famous star. You got to go through the levels of being a star.
100%, yeah.
And the best stars struggle, early a lot. They learn their lessons from that. In fact, I've seen Roy Woods perform at the Hoxton empty. There was nobody in the crowd.
I feel it builds character because I've met Roy Woods and he the way he handles himself versus other artists are completely different. You know what I mean? So I feel like going through those struggles, he really understands what he's doing and he understands his craft and he's good at it and he understands of dealing with people, music videos, how to talk to the girls, keep them motivated and stuff like that, funny conversations.
He has a cool, jovial vibe about him. And, he's got a cool laugh. He's got a smile. He's a happy guy. And, when Roy will meet people on the street that say, yo, Roy, Wagwan, and he'll actually talk to them. He'll give them something deep.
That's what I mean.
He'll just talk to them as a human being, like they're his best friends. And those human qualities is what makes Roy special. As a human being, he's not normal, man.
Yeah.
You see it right away.
No, for sure, for sure. Now, when you've seen a lot of artists, you've been helping a lot of artists, what do you see that a lot of artists are lacking when it comes to networking in the actual industry?
I think, to be quite frank with you, artists have to learn how to be more upfront about what they're looking for. Sometimes you just need to slide in a DM and say, yo, let's work. I like your shit. That's it. And a lot of artists I find are just wasting time, hanging around, not really getting to the point, beating around the bush. You can't do that. I learned how to do music at Gramercy Records, at Baby Grand Records. I was in New York, you know what I'm saying? That's where I met Nico, and that's where I met A$AP Rocky. In fact, that right there is the first Fool's Gold Day Off. Was the first one in Manhattan. That's the one. And in it, I was managing Nico at the time.
Wow.
And I said, yo, this A$AP Rocky kid, you got to watch out for him. He's really good. He's coming up.
So you were watching A$AP Rocky before he was A$AP Rocky?
I was living in New York.
Wow.
So one day I met up with his manager, Chase Infinite.
Okay.
He had a store in Prohibit. He had a store called Prohibit in LES. And I went over there on a Friday. It happened to be Juma. He was Muslim. I was Muslim. So we went to pray. And then we come back to the shop and he goes, yo, Mo, I want to play you something. So he sits down in front of his computer and just presses play. And all I hear is purple swag. And he's doing this move what is this, half, you know what I'm saying? You cooking? What is that?
Yeah.
And I got introduced to A$AP Rocky extremely early. Nobody knew him. But he came so hard with Purple Swag and absolutely destroyed it with you know what I'm saying? So yeah, we were there at the same time. I was with Nico, Juicy J, and Taylor Gang, Wiz.
Wow.
That was our crew over there. And, A$AP Rocky and Space Ghost Perp, I'm saying? Those guys were over there. And they, Space Ghost Perp actually had a song called Fuck Taylor Gang. And A$AP Rocky and Space Ghost Perp were they had a falling out after.
Yeah.
But at the time, we looked at it yo, we can't really be friends with y'all. We're with Wiz and Juicy J, right? So Nico is the third guy in Reefer Party. It's, he's the young cat. So we had to build our own identity, and we did. And then, Wiz called and said, yo, just come to LA, just come to my house. So we lived with Wiz for a bit. And that's when I got to see, yo, this is a big studio. You got to shut up for like 3 hours and sit and watch. And that's where I met Juicy J. He was sitting right beside me, hands me a cup of yellow and goes, yo, sip this, it's good. A little ice in it, And in fact, that's where the song Ice was made with Nico and Juicy J. And then he used that chorus for another song with Mike Will made and ASAP Ferg. Long story short, when I was living with Wiz, like maybe a week, you know what I'm saying? He was with Amber Rose.
And that time. That was that time. Wow, crazy.
Yeah. We were like super, super ganged up at that moment. And, like Wiz is a very humble human being. Like he was just making his house and I'd be sitting there in the corner like young kid from Canada. I'm like just a young creative director, don't know anything. He'll come and tell me, yo, I think I'm going to do this to the house. Yo, I think I'm going to do this. Yo, what do you think of this? Yo, you want some candy, yo? I'm like, wow, Wiz Khalifa is like feeling a little awkward that I'm just sitting there quietly. And that's the human side that I saw in a lot of artists. That's like, yo, if you're a good human, artists will fuck with you.
Talk to me like more stories about Wiz Khalifa. Like, tell me a little funny story that like happened.
Actually, there's a day-to-day where Wiz Khalifa goes to Snoop Dogg's house.
Okay.
I'm in that episode. I go with Wiz and Nico. We could pull it up, and we'll show it to the people. But essentially, I went with Wiz to Snoop Dogg's like personal home, and they played they had this album. They had this movie come out. So Wiz and Snoop did this album together, and they ran it, and they smoked, and I sat there and I smoked joints with the godfathers of weed, and I mean that changed my life. It is on YouTube,
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I realized that just keep working hard at creative direction. Like fill in the blanks. You were gonna say earlier about what artists need to know. Like, first of all, ask for your collabs. Be straight up. Secondly, roll out with curation.
Okay.
Have a theme. Like, it is over with now out. You can't even come up with a paragraph, a sentence. Like AI, be careful with that. It takes away the human element of artistry.
100%.
Which is like I think humans do art to communicate with the divine.
That's how we show who we are and we express ourselves.
It is actually the most human thing that we do. And if you are to use AI in your art, just know what limits it has and don't let it influence your DNA as an artist. And I'm lucky enough to have like a mega discography of creative work all before AI. And like only like 4% of my work is post AI.
I feel like it will be like, that's going to be a flex very soon. You know what I mean?
I think so. Because I think those AI algorithms are using our human life as a basis for understanding humanity. And the closer we are to AI, it's just scanning us.
It doesn't even really understand us because it needs to understand our past and like where we came from and how we started.
But you notice there's an extra emphasis on the fact that we're right beside AI. So like they will know that Da Vinci was an incredible person, but Donny Kashh over here, well, he's sitting right here. He seems pretty smart.
They won't even know.
So actually the fact that we're so close to the creation of AI means we get to influence it.
Very true.
And that's power.
That's very powerful. I feel like that's more powerful, almost will be more powerful than being able to influence the world because AI will definitely be the one that's going to be influencing the world.
Ultimately, we live in a web and a sea of data.
Yes, we do. Datax.
Without X, without Christ, you cannot find your way in the sea.
100%. That's good. I like that. So I noticed like a lot of your stories and stuff like that are from like people's early times, Roy Wood's earliest times, A$AP Rocky's early times. And a lot of those times were like almost before social media really came out and like you could really
before
push
Instagram, actually.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So if Instagram was not alive anymore and all social media was gone, how would datax continue and how would the name prosper still?
I've been thinking about this idea, and what is it that we leave behind? And the two things that I have for sure, and one thing I'm really proud to say is I kept telling people around me, when I'm gone, will people understand how I was? And I had to create a portal that represented me.
I think the same thing.
In every way.
Yeah.
And I created this portal, TR909 World, TR909 Cloud. And it's basically like a super upgraded reception desk for your mind. Because I don't want to doom scroll. Like when you go into Instagram or you're going to any feed, there's no beginning, there's no end. You're thrown in data.
100%. It doesn't stop.
But things should stop. Things should start.
Yes.
Otherwise, you have chaos. Like, what is the point of you doing it? Again, like, you got to know what you're doing. Nail the concept. What is the concept of your time right now? So my day is organized into, is it art? Is it research? Is it pushing weights? Is it flirting? What is it?
I like that.
I gotta for an hour or two, I gotta be zoned into that and kill it, and then that's it. Move on. Because that's your day, right? Like you gotta split it up into like specialities.
I like that. What is something like going through your whole process? What is a mindset shift that you had to do that made you who you are? And if you didn't do that shift, that you wouldn't be who you are right now, and you wouldn't be sitting here.
Wow. You know, I had a very good friend.
Okay.
You know, and he would knock on my door every morning, and he'd be like, "Yo, Moo, wake up! How the hell are you gonna succeed sleeping in, man?" Like he would knock on my door every morning. He'd wake me up, you know. And yeah, that was one of the craziest things ever. Like I basically switched from a late riser to an early riser.
Okay.
And it was game over after that. Those 5-6 hours in the morning when the world's asleep, productivity's through the roof.
It's different. It's almost like there's like an energy shift where it's quiet. Everything is just like calm, and you can just like dial really in to what you're trying to do, your shit. You know, it's all energy I really find.
Millions of people get up from all types of dreams and nightmares, right? And then they project all that into, you know, kind of this world that we live in. So before they wake up, that's like the best time where their energies have not influenced the air.
Ooh. How do you do, like, obviously the creatives, we go through blocks, we go through burnouts. How do you push forward through it? Do you take a break? Is there a movie you watch? Do you take a weekend to go to Hawaii? Like, how do you push yourself through those creative blocks?
That's a really good question, man. I would say that the main thing that I like to do is educational escapism. So I give context to when I escape, right? And cinema for me is the avenue. I actually run my own digital movie theater. I'll show it to you. And it's curated with like the classics of cinema, what you got to understand, left, right, you know, everything from Fast Times at Ridgemont High to Fast and Furious to, you know, Clockwork Orange. You got to just know the basics, you know, the greats, Train Spotting, Snatch, all that. So Lost in Translation, like there's so many good movies that unless you know and you've seen those scenes and you've seen the character development, I don't know how you can create high quality music videos. How can you create cool short films? Like there's not enough knowledge.
Without understanding the basics.
We have to see how humans communicate on screen, and you got to see it done by the best so you can have your own angle on it.
What do you feel is like the biggest L you've taken in your career, and what did you learn from that L? Because I feel like we don't get to where we are and we don't learn the things that we learn without taking some L's in life, because life isn't perfect, right?
You know, first of all, an L is a lesson.
Okay. That's very good.
And you learn way, way more from a loss than you do from a win, you know? But I would say that, you know, early on, I got a lot of money, and it'll come fast, it'll go just as fast. So I had to really learn how to manage my money. You know, that was a huge thing. And once I'm still like in the process of really getting it to, you know, where my wife has it, or, you know, people who are good with money. I think that's like a deal breaker where like you have to be able to see the entertainment industry, the design industry, any industry in terms of raw numbers as a factor of what it is. Like a lot of people focus on like visual, you know, they'll focus on product development, whatever. But you gotta, you know, that's a huge part of it.
When did you know, like, because you're working with a lot of different artists quietly that a lot of people don't even realize you're working with. When did you realize that you had influence and that you could help them with their process?
I started working with Derek Wise and Young Shrimp Tempura early.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're working with a lot of people from the beginning.
We had a clique. We were a group. We were a collective. We were Hello New World, HKW. You know, and then that transformed to Wise Guys. You know, so myself, Young Shrimp Tempura, Tona, Rico Da Vinci, Derek, and that eventually transformed into Get Home Safe, which you added Jazz Cartier and Tosh and 88 Camino. So in that Kensington milieu is really where, like, after moving back from New York, you know, after doing the Taylor Gang thing, Zebra Gang thing, you know, becoming friendly with ASAP and these guys and knowing them, Juicy J, whatnot, I had to come back to the city to figure out what we're doing over here.
Yeah.
Because I'd be over there and they're playing Crew Love nonstop on New York radio. I'm like, I'm from Toronto. Like, what? Like, what? I should go back.
Everything's ready, yeah, because everything's already built there. It's just like, now how do you take it back and bring it to Toronto?
Because you go to a New York club, they shut out every hood. You're not from any of the hoods. So you're just like, oh, fuck, you know, I shouldn't even go back to Toronto where I am from one of the hoods.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I just came back and I linked with, young shrimp right away, and we're gonna make Derek a superstar. And we launched the Vacate EP. It was a great success. And Jazz Cartier ran up to Derek and just said, "Bro, I love your EP." And that's when we were starting to get together in downtown. And yeah, long story short, creative direction is really where I helped artists to really put the art, project together. It looks clean, and really like sexy, presentable, like Nike.
I love it. I love it. So for me, like going through my whole process, I really realized that environment is everything. How do you feel that your environment has shaped who you are today?
Very good question. Sometimes limitation gives you the greatest creativity.
Okay.
So I wasn't allowed to leave the house too much as a kid. So, a lot of my time was spent in front of the computer and video games. And other than that, the only thing I really could do outside was play basketball. So to this day, like I play competitive basketball, and I'm a digital creator that uses a plethora of digital tools to get my shit off. So it was a combination of like street shit with intelligence, just straight nerdism.
Yeah.
And these days, like nerds and geeks are hot. You know what I'm saying? Like they can do everything.
100%.
So yeah, I think tables turn a little bit in that sense. The jocks went out of style.
Yeah.
Not like masculinity, jocks in general. Because these days everything's technology, man. You know how crazy you look when your girlfriend's looking at you, you can't even turn the computer on?
Yeah. Right? That's actually so true. Like you need to know how to use technology, or you look like an idiot. Yeah.
So yeah, technical confidence is a thing. So I grew up building computers, just being obsessed with digital hardware, and that's I'm a self-taught web designer.
Okay. Wow.
So like these portals that I'm creating, TR909, it just came from actually reading books and learning HTML. The Notepad way. And then eventually, I got into graphical user interfaces, and I was developing myself as a graphic designer as well in Photoshop. So it was like Photoshop 6.0, like early. And yeah, I just started fiddling around with it, and then I started getting little contracts around the city, like little restaurants. And before I knew it, I couldn't stop thinking in Photoshop. So I'd be walking around thinking of fonts, walking around thinking of kerning, walking around just, that font is wrong. That should be Helvetica.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I just got caught in it.
Obviously, you do a lot. You've learned a lot. You're a very knowledgeable person, but life can go left and life can go right. What moment in your life that like really was the one that like pushed you to this person versus where you could have just played basketball and that was it, and you could have just got a family and just had a 9 to 5? What do you feel like it was really like that? Like boom, like okay, we're going this direction. This is who we're datax. No, we're gonna be this guy. We're gonna create this branding for ourselves.
So there's two mega narratives here. The first one is that I was very upset at Canada in I think 2011, 2012.
Okay.
And I just didn't see enough like cultural development to get bigger projects off. There just wasn't enough. So one day I randomly just moved to Manhattan. I'm like, I just packed up and I just left. And I ended up landing at Gramercy Records, who they have a Grammy for engineering. And what do they have a Grammy for engineering? The Ludacris album, Chicken and Beer. And that's where I learned how to produce like flawless engineered music and how much engineering is such a big aspect of music making. So luckily we had, James Ziner, Stork, and these Juilliard, graduates. So they had a classical understanding of music. However, they were engineers and they would apply this like, these techniques to make the music so much softer. And that's where really like my actual OVO sound sensibility developed in New York at LVL, working with Nico. So it's like learning the craft in the studios is just a huge part. Like I've sat there with beat makers, like thousands of beats. Like they tell me, yo, you sit here, do you like it or not? Like I sit with them. I don't produce the beat, but I've been in that environment. So, and here's a great thing, right? I started producing myself at age 35.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, I had all these other skills, but I hadn't done production. So I told my son, who was like 11 at the time, hey, why don't we get together and start making beats? And we did. And this kid at 12 years old got a placement with Little B.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you know what? This kid's major. I think he's like taking something from my brain and applying it at a high level. And I just teamed up with my son, and we became like, a production duo. So Nike House Mafia.
Love it.
So we take any vibe, whether it's hip hop, anything, and just really turn it into house. So you can just without thinking about it.
So speaking of your son and stuff like that, like talk to me about family life. How do you balance it? How is your family life versus your work life?
Really good question. If your family's not built for the life that you want to live, you're just not going to work. Like everybody in the family got to be squad.
Yeah.
Like
All
everybody,
in.
like everybody's an artist. Like everybody has to have their gram right. Like everybody got to dress appropriate. And the more seriously you take yourself, the results show. And when you
Yes.
don't take yourself seriously, people can tell. So I take myself very seriously because I'm trying to have a lot of fun, a high level of fun, fun forever, sustainable fun. And to do that, you got to just dig in, And I must say, I never said this, but I used to be an infantryman. I was in the Army
Wow.
at the age of 19 for the Canadian Army.
That's crazy. You've done a fucking lot. Jesus Christ.
The things you can do when you're on social media.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, man, life experience is important. It gives you this wisdom of life, right? Because you're not just like TikTok kid, just all you know is TikTok. Like you're a robot.
Yeah.
You need life. You need people to show you things. And that's a part of humanity that we don't have anymore. And a lot of times, that's what I bring to the table. Like I actually sit and talk to artists. Like I get to know like what bothers them, what they like, and I just sit and listen. And then that's like a key.
I feel like a lot that's what's missing from a lot of people and interactions with people. People just like they just want something or they want to know, hey, we're cool, let's take a picture. Where like I feel like a lot of artists don't get that. Like, hey, bro, like did you eat today? There's like the small things of actually caring for their mindset and like helping them elevate their mindset of just like, yo, what's going on? Like, oh, bro, like my girl's pissing me off. Okay, well, and be able to guide them. I feel like you are that person. But like when it comes to like how do you look at things? And when I'm asking you this question, it's not like I'm talking to you more from a nerdy aspect because you're walking around, you're looking at different fonts. How do you look at things when you're like going towards like creating a song and stuff like that from like the geek side of it, if that makes sense?
For sure, no, it actually does. So it's actually very simple. Does this add to our community and to our culture? Is this like are we able to create a garden from this?
Yeah.
Our job as cultural ambassadors and cultural people is to create a thick, rich soil that has versatility, so you can grow all types of plants in it. Peppers, fruit. So you don't want to have one type of soil. You want to have different types of soil. You want to have variety. Rich soil. So culture building and having events where people go and they don't have to pay. They can just walk in. They hear underground music. That's where you meet people. That's where you kind of like learn this life thing in the underground. And keeping it open like that and purposeless is the key. Like when Roy Wood's on College Street as a 17, 18-year-old kid, like we just wanted to show him how life was in downtown, with positives and negatives, all that. So because we just felt that like all the good sounds were being made in downtown at the time, so many good artists, like, so essentially, yeah, you got to know your culture. It's all about culture. Whatever you're doing, is it relevant culturally? Is it going to help kids, in the suburbs and in the hood? Or are you just, appealing to just one thing? So you got to care about the community. You got to care about the full spectrum of interests.
For sure. Now, for me, I've learned about 7 years ago from my boss, Stas, that experience is everything. When you walk into a place, when you smell it, the way it looks, it creates an experience. How do you create an experience for the people that you're working with?
Very nice. So lighting for me is big,
Okay.
mood, ambiance. A lot of times an artist or a human being, like they're used to like taking something, whether it's whatever it is, like everybody has their own preference. I let people get in their zone first, like just let them be comfortable. And then you open a conversation and you see where it leads kind of organically without being overly systematic about it. You want to be systematic late in the decision-making process.
Okay.
Early on, you want to be open and free and brainstormy.
Now, you're working with a lot of different brands. You created a lot of different companies. Talk to me about Haw 6. Talk to me about Queen Street Radio.
Yeah.
Talk to the people about that who don't know what those brands are.
For sure. So, with the grace of God, I think 2 years ago, I called Jay Grant and I'm like, Jay, I'm throwing this tour. I need a Toronto venue, and he got, Mo, I got you on that. But yo, why don't you come over? Come talk to me. We're doing something. So Jay introduced me to Obi, and
Shout out to Obi.
shout out Obi. Obi Cold. Yeah, I was introduced to Obi Cold at my first event where I thought Jay would be there, but there was no Jay. It was just Obi. So me and Obi kind of like right away were thrown into the fire, and we did a bang up job at the event. We did a bang up job. It was amazing, and we learned that we had event chemistry, structural chemistry. And then, me and Jay and Obi just kept talking and talking like, yo, what do we need? What do we need, And an idea that the three of us had was we need something that hits people with the fresh shit every day. Like all type of culture goes out every day, right?
Yes.
Like our job is to filter it and give it to the people. Yo, here's some new stuff that came out. What I noticed before Queen Street Radio was that everybody had a purpose and an agenda in pushing whoever they were pushing. So you never really got like a good picture of how Toronto looked, culturally. The idea of Queen Street Radio is just whatever's hot in the city, man, just push it out. And
Just
then
get it out there and just like show the people.
yeah, like just real culture, like don't worry about the money thing.
No gatekeeping.
Gatekeeping is just negative. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
People who gatekeep don't have much.
That's
People
what
who
I've
have
noticed.
abundance in their heart don't gatekeep. And that's really what you want, Like you want to have like, oh, I have enough. I don't need anything else. And those guys you want to work with. You don't want to work with guys who are just lacking in everything. And they never, you know what I'm saying? Because it starts to drag.
Yeah.
Like their energy will come for you. And you got to be careful with energy, man.
Speaking of energy, because energy is everything, like how do you stay away? How do you strive from those people that are actually those energy vampires, basically taking people's energy, wasting people's time? The minute that you walk in a room, you're like, oh, this guy again.
I think you got to give everybody a fair chance.
Okay.
And after that, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
If you want to succeed, you don't have time for experiments. You got to know if it's good or not right away, and just keep it moving.
Yeah. And how do you know when things are going to pop and when it's not going to pop? And when do you know to step away from something?
I get a pretty good hunch when I'm onto something,
Okay.
and I've been onto a lot of things. One day, we get a call from Oliver. Would you guys like to sign to OVO? That moment changed everything. Oliver had offered to do the verse for drama, right? We didn't have to sign to OVO. We were like, nah, we want to be part of the family. And Oliver offered the contract, and us, UTU, Roy, and the gang, we said yes. And it was his first job ever as an 18-year-old. He signed to OVO. So I'm very happy that within a year and a half, myself and the team were able to take Roy from raw SoundCloud talent to signed artist, performing at OVO Fest 2015, signed to Drake. And I think that changed everything for me as a human being, because the whole Drake thing and OVO thing, it is such an upper echelon way of looking at life that you really have to cut out the bullshit. Like, you got to think big vision. Like, does this help the cause?
Yeah.
And that really is the umbrella, through which you have to process your thoughts. And you got to be conceptual, like, does this fit the role of this? Does this nail the concept? So yeah, like, just, alhamdulillah, like, the whole thing about working hard every day is showing up every day to inspire your team.
Yeah.
That's your number one duty. Like, your job is to inspire your team. And when you bring that energy, they will give it right back to you like tenfold.
100%. I feel like living life with purpose is so much more meaningful. You know what I mean? When you're actually like, you're not just doing something for a quick fix. You're not just doing something for the year to get the $1 million. When you're building something that's going to be impactful and help and create thousands of people and create their lives amazingly based off what you're building, such as OVO and stuff like that, it's absolutely amazing. And it's such a good feeling. And I feel like a lot of people don't really think the way that you think, where it's, how can we create this? And how is this going to help me later on in life?
I think teamwork and continuing to teamwork with people, despite having differences, is how you build society.
100%.
Like, we just don't know how to disagree with each other. It's a really big issue in our society. And again, being online and being behind the keyboard hurts the cause. We need people to look each other in the eye and be like, yo, my bad. But like, you know what I'm saying? Just give them the human, apologize, or be happy and say, yo, this is it. You see my eyes right now? This is it. You can't do that on the keyboard.
No.
So to me, it always comes back to like, are you a good human? Can you, do you have empathy? Can you feel his pain? That's what artistry is, man. Like artists have this very like sensitive, open air filter where we take in everything, and it's crazy. But then we learn to live with it. We learn to channel it. We learn to save it from other things. Create an orb around it. And once you become a better artist, you learn to really block off anything that gets you away from whoever you are.
I mean, he doesn't like if it's not building you, then you don't really care for it. And what's the
You
point of
learn
caring for it?
you learn a very good filter after a while. Like, yo, is this really good for me, or I know how this is good for me, right? Some things are obviously good for you, but some things are hidden.
Yeah.
So early on, you just don't do certain things. Like, it's not just doesn't matter. But a lot of my shit, right? Like, okay, I'll give you an example. One day, I'm living in 20 Mississauga Valley Boulevard, right? And my wife goes to me, yo, your boys are doing a show. Why are you lazing around? Go, right? And, I said, you know what? Let me just go. And I went, and it was Tona and Derek and, DJ Lisa Monet. Yeah, so essentially, we're on the stage, we're turning up, the Vacay EP, I talked about it. We're doing some songs for him, performing. And then Tona goes to me, yo, you want to make some money? I'm like, yeah. All right, come to the barbershop tomorrow. So I went to the Eglinton barbershop, Elegant Barbers, where Duffer and Eglinton, where Tona was working as a barber. He's like, yo, I'm leaving this, you take over. I was like, cool. So like I started on Eglinton and Oakwood area, like Dufferin area, and I got a house right there. And I was a barber for like a couple years. And that really was my foundation in Toronto.
Okay.
Like just cutting people, you know what I'm saying? Like figuring out,
We meet
how
a lot
they
of
think
people,
and stuff.
right?
Yeah, you got to understand people. And secondly, before music videos, I had started out lining up, the kids before they went on. So, I mean, I'm just, creative director, hand, whatever, you got to do what you got to do. And then my boy Nico says, yo, you should just keep doing that. And then, when I started doing the fades and the lineups and whatnot, it was all right. I could do it, I was a graphic designer anyways, like gradients and all that. So that, however, introduced me to the Haitian community and introduced me to all types of, people that live on Eglinton. And I learned so much about Toronto through Eglinton. I interviewed Biz Loke for Rap Media one time, and it was weird. It was like, there was an Eglinton man right there, and I was an Eglinton man. We're just like, be careful, don't say the wrong thing. Don't say the wrong thing. But Eglinton really is like my soul when it comes to Toronto. And then from there, I went to downtown.
Fair enough. What can we expect from you in the future? From datax?
Okay, straight up, I dropped 2 electronic music albums this year, X-Drum and Palestine Space Agency. There's another mega project I'm dropping that goes into drum and bassy, dubsteppy vibes.
Okay.
And I'm doing it with Cruds. This incredible kid, I work with him. So expect more music that's very like electronic.
Okay.
And I do have the datax fall winter 25 dropping momentarily. And I'm starting something that I think should change everything. And that's the datax Studio Laptop Fund. Every kid should have a laptop or a desktop in his home.
I feel so too, especially nowadays, because you can learn so much and you don't realize what the laptop can do. Because do you know the reason why Bill Gates got to where he was? It's all luck. He went to the only school that had a computer. For at least 2 to 3 years, he was one of the only schools in his area that had a computer. So therefore, he had 2 to 3 years extra time learning coding and learning computers than anybody else did. And that's why he was able to be successful. So I do believe everybody should have a computer.
Unbelievable, dude. Well, look at it this way, right? It seems that everybody has a phone. How's that working out for society?
They don't know how to use it.
It has a processing power, but the point is how you design a piece of technology, how it's to be used. That is everything. Kind of the Marshall McLuhan way of looking at it. The medium is the message. So the medium in which you program your reality determines so much of it. Like when you're on a keyboard and a mouse, you are productive. You don't have time for scrolling. You have to save the file. You have to it just changes how you think.
I think it's the brain, the way your brain works. You know that this is for scrolling, so that when you're on it, your brain just goes, hey, we should be scrolling and not typing.
A computer and a laptop force you to sit,
yes,
think, turn something on, think of words, already organized. So, it's just really a mindset. And I think in the hood, like I grew up in a hood, and, growing up in difficult neighborhoods, you realize, how much society has and how much they could do with it, and how little you have.
Yeah.
And when you get a chance, how much you can do with it. So my way of giving back, is the datax Studio Laptop Fund. So I urge everybody listening, if you have a laptop, if you want to contribute, we are giving laptops to kids in the hood, like they need these laptops to be the leaders of their household so they can help their mom pay bills, do a little graphic work, chop up a video for his friends. Like that is where it happens, and
sorry to cut you off. If you guys are watching this right now and you have a laptop or you want to help donate to this fund, it is absolutely amazing, guys. I believe that kids all should have laptops. Definitely hit up datax. Let's get this going. Let's get these kids laptops because every kid needs to have a laptop because you don't know what that laptop can do for their mindset and where it can bring them later on in life.
Look at it this way, man. Bill Gates, you just said it.
Yes.
What did that computer do for him?
Look at Microsoft right now. He's 3 years ahead of everybody else because he had access to a computer.
I think that in a sea of nonsense, it's time to start typing.
Yeah.
Type. Say something.
Yeah.
People aren't saying nothing.
Very true.
So yeah, man, it's important to be educated. I mean, the whole computer thing is you can write, you can design, you can be productive.
Yes.
You're sitting at a desk. That is productivity. You're not going to be productive running around. There's a level of productivity threshold you can hit. But then that laptop, desktop time, that's, productivity goes through the roof.
100%. So what is one thing or a couple of things, some messages that you can leave the audience with, some words of wisdom, something that they're always going to remember?
For sure. You want to have a basis for life. You want to have a solid foundation.
Okay.
Find your solid foundation, stand on it and rely on it and make sure it's sustainable. And then, whether it's a human being, whether it's non-human, you got to have something in life that you lean on, And for me, it's God. Like again and again, God has showed me, I have put you in the right place.
Yeah.
Now do your thing.
Yeah. I appreciate you for being on the podcast. Absolutely amazing conversation. Yeah.
I knew it would go like this. We just start talking before you know it would be over.
100%. 100%. This is really good. I really enjoyed it.